Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a minute or so and allow some time for people to come in the door. Very excited to have you join our conversation. All right. Want to let you all know that this conversation is being recorded, and next week it will be available on AAUW's website so that you can take advantage of it and hopefully share it with others. We also want you to go ahead as we go through, and if you have any questions, you can put them in the question panel. So feel free to do that. So welcome, everyone. I'm Gloria Blackwell, the CEO of AAUW, the American Association of University Women. For over 140 years, AAUW has been a leader in advancing equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. Our commitment to economic security, workplace equity, and educational opportunity continues to drive our mission from local communities to the global stage. We have been engaged with the United Nations since its establishment, and we're very grateful to the NGO Committee on the Status of Women for lifting up the impact of civil society on achieving gender equality. And we are always excited to participate in the UN Commission on the Status of Women. And we are also proud that back in 1995, AAUW members participated in discussions and planning to establish the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and they participated in the UN Fourth World Conference on Women. But today, we're going to focus on a critical area where gender disparities continue to persist: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the STEM fields. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action remains a foundational framework for advancing women in STEM and highlights education as a vital factor in advancing girls' and women's economic advancement. AAUW has supported STEM education for women and girls through research publications and hands-on programming. And one of the key strategies for increasing representation in STEM has been through education. AAUW's fellowships and grants programs that support women scholars and community-based nonprofits committed to supporting girls and young women. AAUW has awarded over $145 million to more than 15,000 women scholars and nonprofit organizations around the world. From astronauts to zoologists, the recipients of AAUW's fellowships and grants and awards represent nearly every imaginable field. Our local AAUW branches across the United States are also actively engaged in community-based STEM programs for girls. But of course, according to the National Science Foundation, women earn only 35% of STEM degrees and make up just 28% of the workforce in STEM careers. The numbers are even lower for women of color. Yet, we know that when women have access to STEM education and careers, they bring groundbreaking innovations, unique perspectives, and transformative leadership to the field. And we've seen some encouraging progress. More women than ever before are pursuing STEM education, and companies are increasingly recognizing the value of diverse teams. However, progress has certainly been slow, and many of the same challenges that persist nearly 30 years after the adoption of the Beijing Platform for Action. Programmatically, AAUW has worked with major U.S. tech companies and researchers to share knowledge and best practices to recruit, retain, and advance women in the engineering and computing professions. However, once again, those challenges remain, including gender biases, a lack of mentorship and sponsorship, pay inequities, and workplace cultures that do not always support women's advancement. The question before us is clear. how can we continue to break down these barriers and foster a future where women in STEM not only enter the field, but thrive and lead others? That's why we're here today, to hear from this exceptional group of AAUW Fellowships and Grants alumni who are innovators and trailblazers shaping the future of STEM. Their experiences, insights, and vision will lift up the power of women in STEM and ways to push forward toward a more inclusive, equitable, and innovative STEM world. Thank you for joining us. So let's get started. I'd like to start off by introducing our panelists. I'm going to start with Dr. Christine Marizzi. Dr. Marizzi received an AAUW Community Action Grant in 2022. She is an award-winning scientist, artist, and educator, and currently Director of Community Science in Harlem at BioBus, Inc., an adjunct assistant professor at the Icahn School of Medicine and at Mount Sinai in New York. Christine received her PhD from the University of Vienna in genetics. She has extensive experience in science outreach and education, including creating citizen science infrastructure to engage the community in biodiversity research. She frequently consults on best practices for student-centered, place-based science education and serves as a scientific reviewer for international journals, funding agencies, and science centers. May we have the slide with the speakers on it up, please? Thank you. Also, next is Dr. Rachel Marra. She received an AAUW American Dissertation Fellowship in 2021. Dr. Marra is a STEM instructional designer at Cornell, where she leads the development of professional certificates in technical courses. She holds a PhD in astronomy from New Mexico State University and dual bachelor's degrees in physics and astronomy from SUNY New Paltz. A recipient of the AAUW Dissertation Fellowship, as I mentioned, she specializes in innovative STEM programs, including data science and semiconductor manufacturing. Her work extends to social impact through the National Education Equity Lab, designing college credit courses for underserved high school students. Committed to inclusive education, she is an active member of Cornell's Women of Color and LGBTQ+ network groups and has received certifications in diversity, equity, and inclusion and generative AI. Next, we have Yamilée Toussaint, who received an AAUW Community Action Grant in 2022, and she is the founder and CEO of STEM from Dance, which empowers girls with the skills, experiences, and the confidence to pursue careers in STEM through the transformative power of dance. Combining her background in engineering, education, and a lifelong passion for dance, she started the program in 2012 to inspire girls of color to pursue STEM careers. Yamilée holds a BS in mechanical engineering from MIT and an MS in teaching from Pace University. She has earned numerous accolades, including the MIT MLK Leadership Award, Teach for America's Social Innovation Award, AAUW.org's Educational Innovation Award, Falling Walls Foundation Science Engagement Breakthrough of the Year, and was a 2024 Top 5 CNN Hero. And finally, we have Catherine Adelman, who received an AAUW Selected Professions Fellowship in 2018. She's a staff machine learning engineer at Okta, an identity and access management company. At Okta, she focuses on developing machine learning models to protect consumer and SaaS applications from malicious cyber attacks. Her professional experience includes building statistical data models and analyses for a range of industries, including consulting and consumer financial protection research. She holds a master's degree in applied math and statistics and a bachelor's degree in economics, both from Georgetown University. Welcome to our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. So each of you has had a unique journey in STEM. So I'd like to start off with If you can share what has inspired you to pursue a career in this field and what keeps you motivated. So let's start with Christine.
Thank you for this question. And so what I want to share today is, so I did not grow up in the United States. Actually, I grew up in a small town in rural Austria in Europe. And I was always surrounded by a lot of nature and by a lot of people that actually lived off the land. And I would still say to this time that nature was and is still one of my greatest teachers. I just happened to spend a lot of time being outside, looking at patterns, making detailed drawings of plants and animals around me, collecting herbs, mushrooms, berries with my family, which is a real family activity. Also, a lot of cooking and baking and tending to the animals we had. And as a girl, I was lucky enough to actually get an education. It was very important for my family, and especially for the women in my family, that I was able to get an education. And I would have to say I had some great bio teachers, but unfortunately, the school-based STEM teaching back in Austria, it was very far removed from the excitement that I felt growing up. I was learning from textbooks. It was really not much learning hands-on. And there was also not an opportunity to join a club or a space where I could, like, feel I could belong and talk about science or the science kitchen experiments, the gardening that I just did. Um, that means I could really not wait to graduate high school and pursue a higher education that would actually allow me to get back to all the questions that I just felt are inside me and just need to be answered. And I just was looking for means and access to, dabble into that. And I'm the first in my family to get a PhD. It was a windy road. It was not easy. And today, what really motivates me is actually that story. Like, I build infrastructure so more children can experience the excitement of science through hands-on activities and in a very safe space.
Thank you so much. I love the way you've connected to how you grew up and how STEM came to be of interest to you and wanting other girls to have that same kind of experience to learn about STEM early on and to sort of spark their imagination. Thank you. Thank you, Christine. So how about you, Yamilée? What inspired you to pursue a career in STEM and what keeps you motivated?
Well, a big inspiration in my life was my father. He was a mechanical engineer and he really loved what he did. He loved to be the one who can fix things and I just kind of saw that as like a really cool like way to help people. So that's what sort of attracted me. I also started to see in myself that I really liked math. So that's what led me to study mechanical engineering at MIT. And then another moment I'd point out is when I was studying engineering, I noticed pretty quickly how often I was the only or one of a few Black women in my classes. So in addition to developing this like interest and passion for engineering, I was starting to develop this passion for changing that. I didn't think that had to be the case, and I decided that that was the problem that I sort of wanted to engineer a solution to. So that's what led me to eventually start STEM from dance. I've been a dancer my whole life. Dance always has brought me a lot of joy, community, connection, creativity. I can see in hindsight the ways that dancing helped me in engineering. So I had the idea to use dance to attract girls towards STEM. So then that became my passion, and it's still to this day something that I believe so strongly that by meeting girls where they're at and really making STEM cultural and joyful, we can make it so that other little girls like me can dream about being an engineer. You're on mute, Gloria.
That connection between STEM and dance, we're looking forward to hearing more about it. So, Catherine, what inspired you to move into this field for your career?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gloria and AAUW for having me here. It's very honored to be part of the panel. And
Catherine?
oh, can you hear me?
You were muted.
Okay.
Now you're
Oh.
unmuted.
Good. Well, yeah, thank you, Gloria and AAUW for having me here. I'm really honored to be on the panel and to hear the other panelists speak as well. So yeah, in terms of what inspired me, my mom was an aerospace engineer at Boeing in the 80s. And she always loved math, and she tutored math in our home when I was growing up. So I think from a young age, I saw that math is a thing that women like and women like to do. So that really encouraged me. And I would say in terms of like staying motivated, I think in school when I would do math classes, I always would try to find a math buddy, someone to do homework with. And I think that is really important and sort of continued in my professional life. In my like first job out of college, I became very close with the other women who started in the data and analytics group with me. And kind of to this day, I think that developing really close relationships with your coworkers and diving into problems together and kind of developing that trust, it really builds your own confidence. That really helps keep me motivated.
Great, thank you. How about you, Rachel? What set you on the pathway for a career in STEM?
Thanks, Gloria. It's very different, I think, than everyone else here, which is part of the fun thing. Everyone's story here is unique. But I actually wasn't into STEM very much when I was younger. I always wanted to be a teacher, always loved education. Both of my parents were elementary school teachers, so I had that like passion for teaching and education. But when I started college, I was going for high school English education. Wasn't really into the STEM stuff at that point. But my first semester, I took an astronomy class. It was just an intro to astronomy class, sort of took it on a whim. I had to have some sort of science credits, wanted to get it out of the way early. And I just fell in love with it. I had a very passionate professor, and partway through the class, I looked around and realized that not everyone was sitting on the edge of their seat, like getting really excited and like really into everything that was happening. And so I built a connection with this faculty member, and after that first semester, switched from my education English degree into physics and astronomy and sort of never looked back. I really just jumped right in and really fell in love with the problem solving, the sort of using math as like a second language to sort of express all of these different concepts and these different theories, which I thought was really awesome. And something that I really loved once I got into graduate school is that there was always something more, right? There's always something more to learn. We're really on the cutting edge when you're doing research. There's always more things to learn, and getting to be the person who's looking to that and trying to figure out what those things are is just really, really awesome to me. And so something that I want to do that sort of motivates me to keep going this with STEM and with education as well, because that passion stuck with me, is to keep teaching and to keep trying to inspire, especially young kids, young women, to get into STEM and sort of get that experience to get excited about science. And while I was going through all of this, there weren't a lot of women anywhere, right? So started off in college and even more so in graduate school. And so that's sort of starting to change, especially in astronomy, where I was studying, sort of to have more women in these cohorts, in these graduate schools. But there weren't a lot of women. There weren't a lot of women of color. And just being there and trying to inspire other women and other women of color to be able to do this is something I really aim to do.
Great, thank you. Yes, that is certainly an interesting shift from education to physics and astronomy. And you noted the underrepresentation of women of color. And I want to move on to another question around, the fact that despite having made some progress, women, especially women of color, do remain underrepresented in many STEM fields. And if you could talk a bit about what you see as the biggest barriers to gender equity in STEM today. So let's start with you, Rachel.
Yeah, sort of building off of what I was just talking about, I feel like representation is something that really, really matters, especially when you're just starting out and when you're really young. You want to be able to see that there are other people who look like you that can do this, right? It just creates that sense of like, hey, I can do this. I belong in this field. I'm not the odd one out. And so having just that representation, I think is super key. And also having people not just in that role, but having people who have already gone through this, mentoring sort of the younger generation, right? I think having someone who looks like me and has already been through all these challenges, being able to give me advice on how to do it, what works, and just helping get through, I think would really help bridge that gap.
Mhm. And what about you, Yamilée? What do you see as some of the biggest barriers to gender equity in STEM today?
Mm. I think the biggest barrier is that at a young age, many girls start to internalize this belief that STEM is not for them. And some of the ways that we try to support girls like can miss the fact that they're already sort of checked out from that possibility. So I think it's important that we focus on reversing that narrative so that they can be in a mind state where they're receptive to the coding program and all these interventions that are great, but just making sure that they believe in what's possible.
Right. Catherine?
Yeah, I think women often can lack some confidence, even if they have the skills and the knowledge, maybe don't have the confidence to go after, some of these STEM fields. And I think also like an element of perfectionism. I think a lot of women hold themselves to a really high standard, and sometimes that can hold you back because then, you might not want to participate kind of for fear of not knowing the exact right thing or, being 100% correct.
Absolutely. And finally, Christine, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and this is such a big question. I second everything that everybody said on this panel. Yes, I totally agree. Like social norms and practices that actually do not necessarily support women and allow women to see themselves as a meaningful, important, and critical part of STEM. I think this is something that comes up over again. I have had many conversations with our youngest female researchers, and they're very often high school students, and they tell me not being taken seriously is something that, they experience on a weekly or even daily basis, especially when you are a woman or a girl in STEM. So to the girls in our programs, we call them actually BIBAS junior scientists, we do take the time to tell them explicitly that we believe in them, that this is a space for them, that this is, again, they have been accepted in this program. This is not a mistake. We believe they're brilliant and they're here to actually, develop the biggest scientific potential. And having to live up to something actually also raises you. When you always have to push off the negative, when everybody believes you should not be in this profession, that drags you down and that actually really takes a toll on you. So this is one thing that can help. And just like coming in from an international perspective, I also want to mention that just general access to education is also an example in itself. Like we do take it for granted, but not everybody gets the opportunity to learn how to read and write, for example, which is a huge barrier. It is such an incredible, empowering gift. Not every girl can attend school as long as they would like to. I have seen this in my own family. My grandmothers were not allowed to attend high school because their hands were needed working at the farm. So while we have seen positive changes, again, more women getting basic education, seeing initiatives like, AAUW giving out grantees and creating inclusive spaces, I think a lot of women still feel that the further they progress along in their STEM career, the more barriers there are. And women experience harassment. They feel often not to belong, or they actually might still get inadequate support structures. So we are getting there, but I feel like it's still not enough for a lifetime of interest in STEM. And then women leave the field because they don't feel exported. Like, for example, taking leave to take care of yourself or taking care of a child or a family member is still seen as an obstacle to promotion and tenure in STEM because it takes away from research. It takes away the best part of your brain, right? how does professionalism look like in a new modern world? And again, for my field, I see those kind of things also start early, because many girls in our program, they already have household duties or caretaker duties as high school students, and much more than their male counterparts actually do.
Great, thank you. So let's continue and learn a little bit more about your role and what BioBus does. So Christine, as Director of Community Science in Harlem at BioBus, you focus on making science more accessible, as you mentioned, for K-12 and college students. Can you share why you think this program is so successful, not only in the community in New York, but also public and charter schools and as far away as New England, California, and even Rwanda, Egypt, and Jordan?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And again, so a huge part of our work at BioBus is actually making science accessible, engaging, and very, very fun. We have buses that are solar powered, and they are equipped with research-grade microscopes or other tools that actually are not usually available in science classrooms. And BioBus is also, like, I know we mentioned the bus a lot, but it's actually more than a bus. We provide after-school programs at schools and other community-based organizations, and we run community spaces where we do many public events and invite local high school students to do their research. So what's our secret sauce, and how do we do that? And I would say our approach is not really unique, but we just try to capture, like, many people. I think many people who say they don't like science, they never had an authentic science research experience, and we just really enable that. So in essence, when you think about science, it's discovery and asking questions, and as humans, we are inherently curious, and we want to ask those questions and search for answers. And BioBus just nurtures that curiosity and allows students to follow their own curiosity, and also through hands-on explorations. And we actually ask them to come with their own research question that's important for them and for their community. So youth, for example, comes to us, and they get to feel the wonder of transforming everyday things like a drop of pond water into visualizing a whole microscopic ecosystem. Or we have students in our programs that encourage to explore the world around them through, I don't know, noise pollution or animal behavior, or even how can we fight air pollution with biodiversity. And I think the success of our programs is based on the innovation of our students, and a lot of them are girls, but also the trust that the students actually have put into us. So it's actually like an eye-level collaboration. And all of our programs are really student voice centered. That's very important to mention. And our long-term goal, and what we think we try to do on that daily basis, is we want to build, and I think we have succeeded to build, an inclusive scientific community that actually really fosters creativity, openness, and belonging. And again, youth in our programs, they are also empowered to share their science experiences with their friends and with their family members. So it doesn't stop with that one youth in your program. It should go further. And they also should, like, hopefully feel empowered to use science to advocate for their own injustices they actually see in their communities.
That's great. So BioBus offers paid internships and mentoring opportunities?
That is correct. We have a paid internship program, and we actually always look for volunteer mentors that actually want to bring the expertise to do research together with the high school youth, or like junior scientists, as we call them.
Great. So the internships and the mentoring opportunities from research scientists to high school and college students. So how have these types of programs impacted your journey as a woman in STEM? And why do you think that they're important to make sure that we continue them for the next generation?
Yeah, that's also such a great question. And I have to, again, I'm active from a deficit. I did not have science research opportunities when I attended high school. Even if I, again, was lucky enough to get education, attend a specialized high school for STEM, there was nothing outside for me after school. I went to school, I went straight home, that was it, right? And again, reading and doing my own gardening or kitchen experiments, that was my version of trying to do science. And again, bringing in the lens of, like, what does it mean to be a scientist? Our work actually also means to show people science can happen outside of research laboratories, right? You can actually bring lived experiences to science, and they're as much as important, sometimes even more important than actually you are going through an classical academically trained career. So I would say also being the first that just goes and receives a PhD, having the lack, like not having had a role model was actually really hard for me. It was not easy. It took me a while to find information. It took me a time to find my people at the university level as a student. And that's why, you know, we at Vibus want to create like multiple opportunities. Like we believe everybody can fulfill their scientific potential. We offer multiple entry points to experience science as Vibus. It could be like a one touch point experience. It could be a longer internship, right? And our commitment to the students also then once they graduate from our programs, it doesn't stop once they leave the program, right? We really are invested in their success. We write letters of recommendations and we offer career advice. Again, we can be that person in a youth life that just directs them into like, you know, I'm actually hitting a roadblock. What should I do? We can be that person. I think that's just very, very powerful.
Thank you. It's great to hear about the great work that BioBus does, and it really does demonstrate that you create an inclusive, welcoming environment. And you mentioned, not having those role models is really important. So it's really great that you are helping girls to see themselves, as future scientists, and having an engagement in the STEM fields. So I want to shift to Rachel. Rachel, as a STEM instructional designer at Cornell, you play a key role in developing professional certificates and technical courses, something that's certainly seen a lot of growth in the past few years. Can you talk about some of the innovative approaches that you've used to make STEM education more accessible and engaging?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a few people have already said this, but making science STEM education fun and just making students want to learn more and get excited about it is really a key thing. So something that I work to incorporate in all of the programs that I develop is making sure everything stays really interactive and hands-on and that there's real world applications at the end of it, right? So you want it to be fun, but you don't want it to just be fun and then they go forwards into future classes or into future workforce, future jobs, and they can't apply what they learn. So we sort of try to bring those things together. And so getting interactive experiences into the courses is really key, I think, to getting people excited about doing it and really being able to implement it moving forward. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is working with the Cornell Nanoscale Facility, CNF, their semiconductor manufacturing sort of research facility at Cornell. And I'm working with them now on developing sort of training materials and workforce development and some of the ways that we have tried to make that really interactive experience is by having a explore the clean room situation. So they work in a clean room and all of the things that I develop are online programs. So you can't really get people in to experience it firsthand. But we went in, we got 360 cameras, took pictures of where they were working, the tools they were using, the clean room getup they had to wear, all the PPE, all of that stuff. And had the students go in and now they're able to explore this 360 picture. So they're imagining they're in this clean room and they can turn this way and say, okay, what tools are here? They can click on the tools and learn what the tool is, what it's used for, and putting that along with demonstrations of some of the people that I work with actually using these tools sort of makes them engaged and gets them that sort of extra special experience that you don't typically get in this field when you're doing an online education. And sort of connecting that to real world applications is when you are working in this field, there's going to be a lot of decision making going on. No matter what your role is going to be, you're going to need to know what the process is going to be sort of from start to finish. And depending on decisions you make along the way, everything is just going to change as you go out. And so one of the things that I've worked on building in there are these sort of interactive decision making scenarios. So instead of just saying, here's the start project, here's the end, here's a couple ways to get there, you sort of give them that scenario and have them explore themselves. So you say, okay, I could choose option A or option B. Then they choose option B and you give them feedback. Say, okay, this was good for this, and maybe not as great because of this reason. And you give them more options to sort of see how they can go all the way through. And giving them that sort of interaction makes them engaged, keeps them, interested in learning the material, and also gives them that extra experience of applying it to the real world. A couple other things that I think are really key in making it involved for everybody is, as you're going through, we have more people than just sort of the faculty expert or the subject matter expert presenting the material. So we get people from industry to come in. There's a really key place where even if I have to work with a certain faculty who is just, one person. And a lot of times we're looking at faculty from Cornell, more often than not, they're going to have older white men in that role. We're able to get these people from industry to come in, and oftentimes you can have people who look different. You can have women come in, you can have women of color come in, and having that in there is really key. And putting that diversity sort of throughout the course as well. And any examples that you have and case studies, really highlighting it when you go into the history sort of aspects of these courses too, not just talking about the roles that have been played and really pulling on everything that women did in the past to sort of help with these advancements, I think really is a great way to make these sorts of courses and these materials really engaging and I don't know how to finish that sentence, really engaging for women who are trying to learn the material.
That's excellent. From the being innovative to obviously being engaging and inclusive, you have some excellent methods. So shifting a bit to your work with the National Education Equity Lab, and you focus on bringing college credit STEM courses to underserved high school students. What are, from your experience in working with them, what are the biggest challenges that these young girls face in pursuing STEM careers? You talked about role models, for example, and what are other ways that we can better support them?
Before answering, I sort of want to start off with a shout out to the National Education Equity Lab. It's a really awesome organization, pairs with a bunch of different universities, one of them being Cornell, which is how I'm involved here. And they allow Title I high schools from across the country to take college credit STEM courses from different universities completely free of charge. And it gives a lot of people access to this content and this experience of doing a college course and having access to sort of even like an Ivy League experience, something that they would never have gotten otherwise. So this program in general is really awesome. Where I come in is I work with faculty at Cornell to build these college credit STEM courses that are, fully online. They have some interactions with like teaching fellows and the faculty, but everything is completely online. So you have a lot of reach to people everywhere. We have to really make sure everything's accessible, right? Because depending on where you are across the country, they might not have the same resources. So we have to make sure, like we couldn't use Word docs in our courses at all. We couldn't use PDFs because we weren't sure if students were going to be able to access the content. So we had to find sort of creative solutions to make sure that everybody who had the option to take the course was able to get all of these materials. But something that I really think was one of the biggest challenges is not having sort of the confidence that they can do this and not really even thinking that it's an option for them. So a lot of these students come in and they are just sort of, they're offered it. They say, hey, this is an opportunity. Are you interested? And it's not something that they sought out. So it just sort of, falls in their lap a little bit and they end up being able to work through a college course in a really low stakes environment. They don't have the financial burden attached to it. Obviously, it's still a college course. You can take it, you can pass, you can fail, you get whatever you put into it. But it really is a low stakes experience for them to go through and get the confidence and say, hey, I can do this. I can take this college course. I can be successful. There's extra supports along the way. Like there's the teaching fellows who are students at Cornell who give extra support to the students. People at the National Education Equity Lab also give extra supports to the students. The faculty is deeply involved. And so sort of having this extra support and low stakes environment to sort of test the waters really gives a lot of them the confidence to say, hey, this is something that I could do. And not just a college course in general, like some of these students are coming in and they don't know if, not just if they're going to go to college, maybe they're thinking about doing maybe a 2-year program, maybe they're going to go right to trade school. They don't even think that it's something in any situation that they could do. And then they come out of it at the other end, earning college credits from an Ivy League institution. That's really amazing. And it really gives them a lot of confidence and say, hey, maybe this is something I can actually do.
Thank you for the shout out for the National Education Equity Lab. For sure, excellent ways in which these girls are being able to lift up their confidence and just learn more about what STEM really means. So final question, I want to ask you about your background in astronomy and physics, as well as your expertise in data science and semiconductor manufacturing. Sort of how do you see these fields evolving in the coming years? And what do you think are the opportunities that potentially exist for increasing diversity and equity in these cutting edge industries?
Something that I think is going to be really interesting to watch over the next couple of years. I'm going to focus on astronomy here because that's the most of my background. But when I started in grad school, everything was mostly men all over, whether it's undergraduate students, people in my cohort, faculty that I worked with, and even collaborators at other universities. It was predominantly men. And as I was going through, I was in the program for 5, maybe 6, I forgot, years going through. As we got towards the end of that, there was a big push throughout to change that, right? There was a lot of people saying, hey, this sucks. Like we need to get more women in these spaces. And so there was a lot of outreach, a lot of partnering up with colleges and local areas to try to get more women, more people of color to get involved in astronomy and move forwards in the field. And so even by the end of my time in the program, we had cohorts coming in that were now not just more women, but were predominantly women. So as we're going forwards, we're seeing this huge push from predominantly men to being sometimes more women, but at least closer to being equal footing for just the number of people that are there. And this wasn't just at my school. We were seeing this across the country. And it was sort of really awesome that in these graduate programs, more and more women were getting involved. And that started, from lower down. We got more women interested in STEM when they were younger, carried that through high school, carried that through undergrad, and got them into grad school, which is amazing. And now we're getting to the point where all of these women who are going through this greater number of women, they're getting to be in the higher level of the job now. They're not just the students coming up. They've gone through their postdocs. They're now applying for faculty positions, research positions, working at NASA, all these things. They are getting to be up to the top. And so just in general, we're starting to see more and more women in the astronomy field, in these leading roles in general, which is amazing to sort of have seen that progression happen along the way. And now it's happening, right? And I think that's really awesome. We had faculty interviews when I was in graduate school. We had 3 open positions, and our department was committed to having at least 2 of them be women. Turns out at the end of it, we had 1 woman, we had 2 men, because we couldn't offer enough. There were so few women and they were in such high demand that we offered it to 3 or 4 women for both of these positions, and they all turned them down because they had better offers from better universities, which, amazing for them, but not as great for our program who wanted to increase that diversity. So now having more people in those positions, I think is going to be really amazing to sort of just increase the diversity moving forwards.
Definitely. And speaking of that, you are actively involved in Cornell's Women of Color and LGBTQ plus network groups, right? And from your perspective, what are some actionable steps institutions and organizations can take to create a truly inclusive learning and working environment in STEM?
I think having those groups in general is a huge, huge step. And not just saying, hey, we have this group, look, it's over there off to the side. Having the groups there and having people be engaged and like really interacting with those groups is a great resource because it really builds a community for people who are involved. So yes, it makes the college look good to say, hey, we have these groups, we're supporting these people. But also for everyone who gets involved, it builds a really great sort of resource and community for everybody. And having that there, I think, can really work as sort of a mentorship sort of program as well. So I'm more new to my role. I've only been at Cornell for a couple of years. And these groups have connected me to women who have been in these roles for decades, right? So you have that sort of mentorship to see what we can do using these groups. And I think something that not just with these groups, but sort of in general, you can do is while you're building things specifically for education, you can really build diversity into that aspect to sort of create more inclusive working environments, right? So you have, I was talking about accessible materials. We have to make sure everything can be read by a screen reader. We need to make sure that everything is accessible for anyone who wants to take the course. We have to make sure these examples are diverse and showing multiple kinds of people, different types of learning techniques. So really just not just saying, hey, there's these groups and hey, we have this wonderful community here, really implementing that in your work as well. And you can get some really great ideas from other people that you meet in these networks to sort of implement in your work as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to elevate the fact that obviously when we look at the current attacks on higher education, the current attacks on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility programs, obviously our higher ed institutions are challenged these days with making sure that they are still reaching out and ensuring that they're having inclusive learning and working environments, but needing to go about it, in a different way. But it really is still a priority because it really is important for student success. So thank you so much, Rachel. I want to shift to Yamilée so we can learn a little bit about STEM from dance. STEM from Dance takes a unique and creative approach to STEM education by obviously integrating dance. And so you mentioned a bit earlier, but what really did inspire you to combine these two seemingly very different disciplines? Tell us how it has helped engage girls in STEM because, some obviously may see STEM and dance as two separate worlds. How do you respond to skeptics? And, what do you think the STEM field can learn from the arts? That's a lot that I just said, but it really is important to put it all together and talk about how you got there and how you address some of these issues.
For sure. No, I'll start by saying there is, when I was going through my own STEM journey, I knew that in order for change to come about, we have to do things very differently. And when I was thinking about this issue of, girls, people of color, having a hard time seeing their place in STEM, I thought about dance because oftentimes in those communities, dance is like very central. It's a way that people celebrate and connect and let loose and have fun and experience joy. And those were the things that I knew needed to be present in STEM. When you don't feel like you belong, you're kind of tense and, just not that open to want to go further down that road. So that's really the vision I had initially was what if the way that you feel when you dance can be what you experience in STEM. It's been such a pleasure to see that vision through. It's been 13 years since I founded the organization and have seen time and time again girls go through a transformation from, hey, STEM's not for me, I'm more of a this kind of person, to really realizing that they are capable. And so what we do is we allow them to combine the two through performance. So they get to create performances with costumes that light up, where they get to make the circuit, program the circuit to make whatever effect goes with their movement. and other ways that you can bring STEM to the stage. And they get to be the innovator, the creator of that integration. And it's just amazing to see what happens when you sort of intertwine something that they're already compelled by, already interested in, to this new world that they're becoming more familiar with, and how much they rise to that occasion. You know, you can go on a YouTube deep dive on all the videos we have of the things that the girls have created over the years. But I'm so impressed that that it can be something almost as simple as dance that can open up the door. We have girls who like otherwise would not be on the path of being a data scientist and studying engineering in college, all because of that entry point in dance. So I'm really passionate about, you know, finding all the girls in the country, in the world, who just need that spark of something that means something already to them, something that gets them moving, something that they can connect to, something that feels familiar and exciting, and use that as the gateway for them to see their future in STEM.
Love that. So you have a background, as we mentioned earlier, in both mechanical engineering and teaching. And so how have those experiences shaped the way you design the programs at STEM for Dance? And what have you learned about making STEM education more accessible and engaging?
I mean, so much of what we do comes from my own lived experience. Like, I know what it feels like to question whether I belong. And it is from that feeling and that experience that I created the organization. What I think is important in STEM education is to know how much that feeling can turn young people away from STEM. Right. So I think about how do we equip girls for that moment when they're like, I don't know if I still want to do this. That moment, how we keep them saying yes. And I think there is a level of fortitude and persistence that dance develops. I think there's something special about being in a space with other girls who are like exploring their STEM journey. There's like a power in not feeling alone, but feeling like you could find your people. That it's not nerdy or strange to like things in STEM, but it can be like as like fly as making a dance a Beyonce song, right? It's these things that I think will build that resistance within them to be able to persist in those moments that are critical. So yeah, so much of what I've experienced, even as a teacher, I was a math teacher after college. I taught high school algebra, which you know, a lot of ninth graders don't care for too much. And so just like that experience, like how do I convince my room of ninth grade children how to like see the value in something like algebra, not just see it as a subject to pass. So yeah, a lot of those things inspired me to think about STEM education very differently.
That's great. So STEM for Dance has been recognized with several prestigious awards for the impact that it's had. Can you tell us about a success story of a student whose trajectory was transformed by STEM from Dance?
Sure. So many to tell. I will share so one of the awards we recently got was the CNN Heroes. And so in that journey, one of the stories we featured was that of Melody, who came to the organization because her mom wanted her to do something for the summer. And she likes to dance. But she was like very hesitant about STEM. And so she came to the summer program and really started to realize that maybe she has a knack for it. So she came back for a second summer and then a third summer. And along the way we crossed paths. So I started to like sort of take her under my wing and recommend her for certain things. And now, present day, she's a junior in her spring semester at Georgia Tech studying computer engineering. And it really started as her, you know, from her love of dance. And now like I'm convinced she's gonna be this engineer who changes the world. No exaggeration. So yes, I'm really proud of her journey. And even those who don't even make it that far, just like the fact that so many of them like can leave something like a club or like one of our one-day events or our camp and just like think differently about themselves. Like that's to me is like where the good stuff happens.
That's really great. So along the same lines, what advice would you give to educators, policymakers, and even industry leaders who are, still looking for opportunities to expand opportunities for girls in STEM, especially through, something unconventional and creative, like the approach that you have?
Mm-hmm. What I would yeah, I still believe that if we want a different outcome, we have to try to do things differently. And I think a lot of the answers lie within the girls themselves that we're trying to serve. It was me, you know, recognizing that connection to dance that led to our solution. And I think there are other things that really capture young people, capture our young girls, that we have to pay a lot of attention to. Which may mean we do things differently than we may think that us adults want to do it. But I think the answers are there. We just really have to pay attention to the girls.
Yeah, that's really great. So thank you, Yamilée. Now I want to turn to Catherine to hear about your work and your story. So Catherine, women remain underrepresented in tech, particularly in AI and particularly in cybersecurity, which we know are the fields that are paramount these days. Can you share any challenges that you faced as a woman in this space and what strategies have helped you to actually navigate and thrive in this male-dominated industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, in tech and machine learning, coding is, of course, a really important skill. I think that's been traditionally a very male-dominated industry. And so I think I've personally struggled with just the confidence of, you can always be a better programmer. So worrying like, am I not coding fast enough or my code isn't as clever as it could be? And I think like, one thing that's helped me that I try to remind myself is that if you come upon a problem that you don't immediately know the answer to, not taking that as an indication of like, oh, I shouldn't be in this field or I'm not good at this. Just seeing this as like, okay, great, I'm going to learn something today. Like, I'm going to figure this out. And I think like it's, a lot of the other panelists are, driving so many cool educational programs that I think try to build that confidence in women and girls. And I think that's like a key component is like seeing not knowing something as an opportunity, not like an indication that there's not a place for you in STEM.
That's great. And also STEM careers require that continuous learning and being adaptable. What advice would you give to young women looking to break into fields like, machine learning and cybersecurity and AI, especially those, who may not see many role models who look like them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I would if maybe someone in school is looking to break in, I would say look for opportunities to build kind of a repository of projects that you can talk about. So maybe you have like an end of semester project or something you do on the side, and maybe try to use some data set related to security if you're interested, or build something simple. And I think a lot of times to break in, it's often about just demonstrating sort of an interest and like signaling that you are like excited to try something. So I would recommend that. And then I'd also say like I think networking can be really scary for people, and I would I think maybe especially for women at times if you're don't see a lot of other people in the industry that look like you, but I would encourage people to try to build that skill. So, and maybe start small. Like when you're looking for a job, you might be having a little more high stakes networking conversations. Maybe you're trying to ask somebody for a referral or, you know, an internship or something. So I would say like start with like a lower stakes conversations, just, you know, maybe friend of a friend or something, like ask people about their job and their career, kind of those informational conversations. So you sort of build that networking muscle in like a lower stakes environment. Yeah, a couple things come to mind.
Very, very good advice. Making those connections and learning firsthand from individuals who are already, you know, engaged in the field, so that they can provide you with information and direction to give you the information that you need. And so your work at OCTA focuses on using machine learning to prevent cyber attacks. So how do you see AI-driven cybersecurity shaping the future of digital safety, and why is it important for women to be involved in developing these technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting industry. I mean, AI, of course, presents, you know, a lot of risks that sort of makes it easier to launch attacks or create harmful content, but it also offers an opportunity to use AI to detect and mitigate those types of attacks. And I think like one area that I see as especially important is the trust and safety industry, which is, you know, any platform that has content or any user interaction, you know, should be, you know, monitoring for harmful and abusive content, and what needs to be removed to keep their platform safe. And I think the definition of what is harmful or abusive is going to, you know, there's not just sort of one line in the sand, like what makes some content unacceptable on a platform. That is going to be decided by the consensus of the industry. And so I think you want a diverse set of voices in the room, you know, figuring out what that means. So I think that's a really important reason to have women involved in those types of conversations, which will really shape sort of digital safety for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I have a couple of more questions that I want everyone to have an opportunity on to. Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine. So looking ahead, what do you think is one key change, right? Whether it's in education, policy, or workplace culture that you believe would have the greatest impact on advancing? Start with you, Christine.
Yeah, I think I would like bring it back to like really doubling down on changing social norms and how the future of science can look like. Giving access to education to women as much as possible, and then really doubling down on like, you know, making that social norms change. And we need support systems for this. We also need, like, you know, women to support each other. I think that's my number one thing I want to mention here.
Excellent. What about you, Catherine?
Yeah, I think paid parental leave is really important, you know, not just for women, but for men as well. So, you know, women can go back to work and, you know, their partners can tag team care, and also women can see a path forward in the workforce after having kids. And I think having paid both maternity and paternity leave kind of sets this norm that it's normal to take time off when you have kids. So it's not just only women who are taking leave for that reason.
Absolutely. And Rachel?
Before answering, I want to say that was an awesome answer, Catherine. I completely agree with that. It's really such a barrier for women starting families, and just in the industry, it's so judged frequently. And so I think that change would be awesome. To actually answer the question, I would say working with young women when they're really, really young, not, you know, infants, right? But once you're even starting in toddlers, getting into elementary school age kids, getting them involved with STEM in fun, hands-on ways, giving them this, you know, early love for it, and then sort of mentoring them all the way through, right? Starting early and keeping up with that all the way through. So having them gain that confidence really early on, I think would be a huge, huge pro. And to just sort of add on to that, my brain is sort of like left field there. But I think it's really, really important that it's also not seen as like a weird thing that a woman is interested in STEM, right? Or that they're, the weird nerd and no one wants to talk to them because they're a girl and they're interested in this. It should definitely be seen more of like, it's cool that you're involved here and you're welcome here and you just fit in with everyone else. And I think that would be so important.
Excellent. And Yamilée, we're talking through the question, what is one key change when we're looking ahead, whether the change is in education, policy, or workplace culture, that you believe would have the greatest impact on advancing women in STEM?
I think in addition to what has been shared, I think it's also important to showcase maybe like atypical STEM careers. There's more to STEM than like engineering and science, being a scientist, some of the things that like people with limited understanding of STEM think of. There's a lot of nuance. There's things that like careers that you wouldn't really think, use STEM that can really captivate people's attention, young people's attention. When I was a child, I had no clue that I could do what I'm doing now, like do work through social change. And I think the more we show the diversity of options, I think the more that people, especially girls, can see themselves in STEM.
Great. And next, for young girls who may be interested in STEM, right, but feel uncertain or discouraged, what advice would you give them to help them see a future for themselves in these fields? And I know many of you've touched on it a little bit, but if you're specifically talking to a girl, what is the advice that you would give them to help them see a future for themselves in these fields? Let's start with you, Rachel.
So I think that when faced with something like this, a really great way to approach it is to make it personal, right? So I am somebody who is a woman, I am in STEM, and I'm successful in STEM. And so sort of showing that like, it's possible, you can make it here. And then sharing some time where I also felt discouraged. I also felt uncertain. I wasn't sure if I really belonged there. Like when I was trying to go from undergrad into grad school, I wanted to do research. I wanted to get my PhD in astronomy. I applied to, I think, 12 different schools. I got rejected from 11. I got waitlisted at one, ended up getting off the waitlist, getting to go there. But I felt, everyone else in my class was given an offer originally. They were offered extra fellowships because they were sort of the first round picks. And so I felt like, do they really want me here? Imposter syndrome, right? Like, can I do this? Do I belong here? And I worked my butt off and I came out on top, right? So just keeping on believing in themselves and sort of sharing that personal experience. Like, I've been there, we've all gotten through this, something like this, and you can do it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yamilée, what advice would you give?
Rachel, that was great. I would say that, often what comes with pursuing STEM is like the technical aspect of things, right? There's like math classes to take and science classes to take. I think in addition to the pursuit of that, I also encourage like in pursuing other things as well. I think that it is, I think we know that the nature of things is that it's interdisciplinary. There aren't these boxes that exist. So I encourage them to go out, have fun, do things that bring them joy. Like my story ended up being that this thing that I just did for fun, dance, ended up being like a big part of my career. But I wasn't thinking like, let me there was no purpose behind it. I just did it because I enjoyed it. So just encourage them to just do the requirements, do the things that like need to happen, but also like pursue joy.
I love that, because a lot of it, when you focus only on the education piece and see it as stressful, sometimes it's not about fun, right? And when you think about giving you something that is going to make it more fun, that makes it more approachable and enjoyable. Thank you, Yamilée. Catherine?
Yes, I think I would say, don't be discouraged if you don't understand everything right away. Nobody does. Learning means encountering things you don't know. And I would just encourage them to don't feel like because you don't know something that it means that it's not the place for you. You should keep practicing, and that's how you see progress in your skills.
That's absolutely true. Christine?
Yeah, and I just really echo everything that was already said. And I would just mention, never let your defeats define you. There's always something, you can learn from a challenge, right? It could be like something that you learn about yourself. It also could learning about the barriers that you have. And then a huge yes to joy. Slow down, find what you're really passionate about, right? What gives you joy, what brings you forward, because you're gonna need this, especially we have seen this as women in STEM, like we do everything everybody tells us, and sometimes it is still not enough. So finding ways to uplift yourself in times that are gonna be hard, it's incredibly important. This means maybe find a place to journal, find your strength, find your people, find your community. I'm an introvert, you can go online, you don't have to talk to people, you can draw, you can dance. Invest in yourself, and that actually, I think will pay back at the very end.
Thank you very much. All right, now we have a question that came in from one of our participants. It says, these fields from a very young age so that they will be encouraged to pursue careers in STEM as they get older. Anyone have a thought about that? Catherine?
Sorry, I think I missed the beginning. You said, how can we encourage girls from a young age?
Yeah, so how could you encourage girls from a very young age so that they'll be encouraged to pursue careers in STEM as they get older by having schools start teaching these fields from a very young age?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I can remember in elementary school we had a lot of little math games. And I think like gamifying some things can make it seem a little more approachable. I think we had to like fill out the times tables as quickly as possible. And I guess there's a flip side to that is maybe it can feel a bit stressful. But I think just encouraging like educators and instructors to give positive feedback to girls that show promise and interest in STEM. Like, you're great at this, like seems like you really like this, like this could be something that you can really grow into and everything. So just giving really positive feedback, I think, to girls at a young age about math and science is really important.
Okay, anyone else want to address that question?
Yeah, I would just also add, again, not all schools have means to, send teachers to teach professional development. Again, train a trainer, train a mentor is really incredible important, especially if you want to uplift voices that have been marginalized. I would say if there's any means to get teachers more training or support, or even maybe there is some funds on the side to bring out an external partner. It could be a local NGO, it could be a local scientist who can just, bring in and fresh wind, fresh inspiration. You don't have to do everything by yourself. And I think part of the solution is also empower teachers, because it is one of the hardest jobs. And we need to be sure they have more repertoire. So talk to your PTA, talk to the school system. Maybe there's some funds to bring outside providers in.
Absolutely. All right, another question. As a woman in STEM careers, what major challenges have you faced as a woman in your career, and how difficult was it to speak up for the changes you want to see within your professional organization or business? Anyone have an example of this as they have pursued their STEM careers? What are the challenges and how difficult was it to speak up and sort of ask for what you need? Who wants to tackle that one?
I'd like to
Rachel?
share something, yeah. So right now I am no longer in academia, right? I'm no longer seen as like an expert in astronomy. I work with faculty who are all top of their fields. And whenever I work with them, predominantly the men, they don't take me seriously at all. Like they think that I am there to get whatever content they have, make it look pretty, and I don't know what I'm talking about, right? So it's often that I'm spoke down to. It's often that when I am able to interact with the material and respond about something, some piece of content that they obviously know more about than me, but I am able to learn and I talk about it, they sort of talk down to me like I am a young person who doesn't know what they are talking about. And it's very, very hard. And I see that it doesn't happen at all with male counterparts, right? It's just something that because I'm a woman in a STEM field, I can't know what I'm talking about, which is very hard to deal with. And the way I've gotten through it is to just stand up for myself repeatedly and sort of make them respect me, which takes time and is really frustrating that it's extra effort that I have to put in that other people might not have to. But I have to actively go above and beyond to prove myself so that they take me seriously, which is, again, frustrating. That's something I have to do, but it's something that in every project I work on is something I have to face.
Thank you for sharing. That was extremely well said, because surviving in that workspace where there isn't the support that you need, it really is good to hear sort of what are the strategies that individuals are using in order to make sure that you aren't someone who's just being walked on, right? Anyone else have a situation you want to share? No?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay, go
can
ahead.
share, yeah, as in one role that I was in, I didn't feel like I was getting the project assignments that were going to help me grow into kind of the direction, like the more quantitative analytical projects. And so, I think that it can be really hard to speak up and say like, you know, because you don't want people to think that you're not invested in the job, but but it is important to speak up and say like I'm looking to get these skills, I have these career goals, and I think doing that is something that people in the workplace do respect. Is everyone should have their own career aspirations, and kind of voicing them I think is important, but I know that I think as women that can be hard. And I think another thing that comes into play is like sometimes there's a balance between like the work that needs to be done and the work that you want to take on to advance your career or like grow certain skills you're interested in. And I think a lot of times women maybe default more to the first, like, well, the team needs me to do this, so I'm just going to do this and ignore this other work. But I think trying to build up some confidence to like be able to voice get the opportunities that you're interested in so that you can grow, because your own career is really important. And you should be cognizant of that.
Thank you so much. I think all of this advice and feedback and sharing your own personal stories is incredibly valuable, because we learn by hearing how women before us have had to go through these particular situations and what they did to navigate them. So thank you very much. And the advice that certainly that you have provided to inspire girls, to help them, really see a future for themselves in these fields is as important as those who are currently in the fields, right? Who are going through the situations right now. I mentioned earlier that AAUW, through our fellowships and grants that have been awarded to all of you, as well as the programs that happened at our branch level across the country, have really had an impact on advancing women and girls in STEM. And I would like to mention that one of our one of our programs that has been around for quite a long time, that started through an AAUW grant that they received from the national office. Tech Trek is a program that started with AAUW California and then moved to multiple states, and it really has had such an impact on girls. They come in as rising ninth graders and they spend a week, on a college campus, learning all the things about what STEM means and having a really engaging experience that then can propel them into not just learning more about STEM, but, as they're entering high school, being more equipped to know and inspiring them. And it really has inspired so many girls who were given that spark in that program that later really encouraged them and propelled them into choosing a STEM major. So I just wanted to lift up AAUW Tech Trek, which has been around since 1988 and which really is an amazing program. And those kinds of programs that exist at the community level across our country, really are the ones that are inspiring and helping to move girls forward in the STEM careers. And those are the ones that we really do support from AAUW National as well. So thank you all very much. I think that we have been provided with some incredible information, hearing about your own journeys and your stories, the advice that you are giving, and just the four different perspectives about how you are navigating your careers and how we know that you are having an impact in STEM and that you are inspiring the next generation. So I know that on behalf of everyone participating, I thank you for all of your valuable insight. Thank you for the knowledge that you shared. And honestly, thank you for spending time with all of our participants this afternoon. I mentioned in the beginning that this is recorded and we're going to be sharing it probably in about a week. It'll be on our AAUW website as well. I want to thank the AAUW staff who are behind the scenes, who helped us set all of this up. AAUW, we do salute the 69th UN Commission on the Status of Women and UN Women, and we thank the NGO Committee on the Status of Women Forum, and we really do for all of the support for our parallel event, and all of our peers who have been participating in CSW 69. So we look forward to our continued work that we are doing as a part of the civil society organizations. Because as we move forward, the Platform for Action and the Sustainable Development Goals are really the ways that we're going to continue to assess how we can achieve our goals and know that civil society will continue to play a critical role in advancing equality. So we hope that today's conversation has provided all of you with information, opportunities, and ideas for action, and really with renewed hope that we can and will achieve a more just and equitable world for women and girls, and not just in STEM. So thank you all for your participation. We encourage you to check out our website, become an AAUW 2-minute activist, so that you can take some timely action on issues impacting women and girls when our advocacy is needed the most. So definitely visit it, learn more about our research, our advocacy, our career boosting training, and our funding for education through our fellowships and grants to advance women's education and economic security. Thank you. Marra is a STEM instructional designer at Cornell, where she leads the development of professional certificates in technical courses. She holds a PhD in astronomy from New Mexico State University and dual bachelor's degrees in physics and astronomy from SUNY New Paltz. A recipient of the AAUW